Hi. All right. So this is a continuation of my commitment and to read the entire book cover to cover this year. And I think we're doing okay. I mean, so look, like I'll be honest, like a big part of this is figuring out how to really comfortably talk. I've talked about this in other videos. I don't know. Um, if this is gonna sound like I'm repeating myself, but there really is, like, a whole thing about being able to just really comfortably express oneself, myself, while talking on camera, and it's an interesting thing because what I'm finding is that, it is like um, there's just it's almost like learning a language where it's just there's different levels of being able to freely express exactly kind of what's on your heart and mind, and so it's just as everyone who does this really well that I've been admiring, it's just like their whole thing is that you just have to keep doing it, so, yeah, so here I am. So for today I'm uploading a video right now, which is really about getting started and best practices, and this is inspired by the conversations I'm having with people that are reading the book and learning from how they are, um, getting the most out of it and how they are, even figuring out how to really effectively navigate it. Because, I mentioned in the video that I uploaded a bit earlier that this is not, like a cover to cover book. This is more, this is like a textbook. And so, like any textbook, I don't know about you, but I've never read a textbook cover to cover. I mean, I've read this one or wrote it or whatever. But there's something about having a different relationship with a book when it's like you're actually like using it to sort of supplement a larger process of learning. And also to that point that the one of the things about Parinama Method is that and this might be a repeat if you do watch that other video, but I'm gonna go for it. Is the idea of a householder practice, which is, in India, you have folks who become renunciates who leave their family and like live in like absolute like sort of like spiritual like sattvic states and and that is, I think, a lot of times is when people are thinking about like their sense of seeking fulfillment and wanting change, is that it means really significant disruptions to like a householder lifestyle. And so a householder practice, on the contrary, is one where your practice that's happening in a committed, devoted daily fashion is actually supplementing the ultimate quality of your life. And so, certainly parinama could be practiced any way you choose to, but having been somebody who has kind of done it all as far as, abandoning conventional life and living in India, living in Bali, having also done the thing of like, being an executive and, building organizations and, and creating wealth and all that kind of stuff. One of the things about Parinama is that what we're looking at is we're actually going into the places that we don't think we need to look because most of the time, and I'll speak for myself as a specific example, is that my whole notion was like if I could figure out my career, that like everything would fall into place. But my career was actually the thing that was like kind of like probably the most functional of everything, and so that with really like the process of parinama where you're sequentially working through every facet of your psychology and your lived experience is that it actually is getting into the stuff there. Like, oftentimes it's like we don't really want to, like, we're not looking there because it's a place that's can be particularly uncomfortable. So, but the rewards are great. The rewards are great. I just want to encourage it. The rewards are really great. But, so this part that I'm gonna read, I actually might be kind of doing a repeat here, but I wanna walk through this specifically as one go as part of this notion of, like, how to like approach, like some ideas on how to approach Parinama. And so I'm going to read safety first. So this is page 36, and I'm going to try to finish off chapter 2 in this session. But safety first. So we need to feel safe before we can be brave. Indeed, yoga can feel good at first, but I've heard folks say, it feels so good, I'm not sure why I stopped doing it. When we start to open up and release long held tensions in the body, the feel good period of yoga can shift into experiencing emotional discomfort. Both as a yoga student and a teacher, my experience with guidance and support around release was woefully inadequate. Directions like explore that and be gentle with yourself today are like driving without a map. We don't know where we're going, so there's an inability to offer directions back to safety. The Parinama method is a map, but going too fast can overwhelm. So, similar to thawing frozen fingers and toes, it's best to go slow. This work must be handled with care. It's common that the actual exercises can feel relatively easy. Some clients who are used to constantly pushing past limits ask to heighten the intensity. Yet afterwards, the intensity causes them overwhelm and emotional flooding. More on that in a moment. So we work to find their zone of tolerance through a gentle and patient process of trial and error. So many of us are used to pushing ourselves. Sometimes I see growing alarm or distress in clients' eyes as they ask to be pushed harder. And I've learned to slow down or stop to check in at the earliest signs of this. This really this is a really important thing, which is that, certainly at the time of writing this and even right now, like the notion of like endurance, like with boot camps and even like the Ashtanga style yoga that I used to practice, is like that this represents like a very like particular aspiration that certainly for me it was very comfortable, like to spend as much time as possible in these places where I was like pushing myself in my professional. I wonder if this is something that you relate to. I think a lot of people do, but it's maybe perhaps not like entirely universal. But the idea of like pushing really hard, and I think on the, as far as like what comes later as a third hub adaptation, is actually either pushing hard or like avoiding a challenge out of like self-protection. Either way, either way, like ultimately what we're looking at is actually creating a trust relationship with ourselves, where if we say it's enough, we actually allow it to be enough. And that's a very complex thing to surface, which is that kind of trust with yourself that you know that you're going to do what's right for yourself and you're going to take care of yourself. So that can be a very profound experience to do that for oneself. So, psychologist Dan Siegel coined the term window of tolerance in the developing mind, how relationships and the brain interact to shape who we are. Also, note here, I'm just going to press pause on this, is another thing with Parinama Method as a textbook, the notion of a textbook is that, and also is like part of a householder practice, is that my hope with this was that this book was much like it is a combination of hundreds of books and hundreds of scientific articles and interviews, is that it would spark curiosity and it would spark exploration into the areas that that you as a very like specific human being are inspired to follow. So, hence the bibliography, which by the way is not, is limited only um, to texts that were specifically covered in the book, but it goes a lot deeper as far as some of the inspiration that went into the thinking. But my editor didn't want everything in there, so followed that. So anyway, so referring to how much something we can comfortably tolerate. A window of tolerance is not something to take lightly or to disregard when doing transformative work. Part of this process is developing and building trust in ourselves, and blowing past limits to be so-called strong or superior interrupts our progress. Within the zone, we can function effectively and are typically able to receive, process, integrate information. and otherwise readily respond to the demands of everyday life. If we extend beyond it, we can become overwhelmed with either hyperarousal, frustration and agitation, or hypoarousal, numbness and feeling spaced out. So this is an interesting point, actually. The hyperarousal arousal versus hypo is that, like, folks can be used to one or the other. And one of the things about with practicing Parinama, certainly what I've seen that's happening right now, is that if you're used to becoming numb and kind of more like zoned out, that starting to experience hyperarousal or vice versa actually can happen as we're expanding capacity. So just a note on that. So just notice, be kind, like don't charge too hard. Like it'll come. It'll come. And a lot of what this is that we're showing up for ourselves. And showing up isn't really like a quantitative thing, it's more of a qualitative thing. That's actually a good way to put that. So sanctuary, creating a safe space. So similar to like start like finding a book that's like a nice kind of soft place to land. Before you need them, identify the friends, music, and other constructive comforts to turn to if you feel overwhelmed. See chapter 11. Pets, partners, books, walks, relaxing playlists, a bath, a massage, therapy, naps, friends, and podcasts have been and continue to be safe harbors for me, a place to regain my footing when experiencing overwhelm. It's a very natural part of this process. So now here's the thing: afterglow, recoil, then integration. So after anything that expands our capacities, such as a challenging and revealing conversation, a performance that's a new personal best, or insights from a retreat or vacation, we initially can expect to feel good, the afterglow, which is followed by some discomfort that comes later, the recoil, and eventually by a leveling out, the integration. So the afterglow can occur after therapy, yoga, a positive experience, feeling vulnerable with someone, exercise, and any kind of peak performance achievement. When we actualize greater levels of our capabilities and talents, we walk away from the experience feeling lighter and more free. It's the afterglow. Now, the recoil and the integration. Soreness after a challenging workout is the physical version of this. It may hurt to walk the next day, but ultimately greater fitness is achieved. Integration happens after the recoiled discomfort settles down. Rome wasn't built in a day, and for a little while, the afterglow will have us feeling like it could have been. It's kind of clever. The recoil is the darkness before the dawn, and it can be hard to remember this when it's happening, but by allowing it to pass, staying with yourself instead of resisting it, integration occurs. Yeah, that's really good. Be gentle and keep showing up for yourself. A practice that slowly opens and expands capacity offers protection. This work is powerful, and a rapid, immediate, dramatic change can be disruptive and distressing. You've spent your entire life living within your current capacity, adaptations, and holding patterns. These are big shifts, and as tempting as it can be to want rapid change, nothing is more important than cultivating acceptance of yourself exactly as you are within any given moment. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. This one's pretty important, and I think it's like a relatively short part of reading, but it's tends to be kind of pretty potent for folks with like one really common one is having a conversation with somebody that it really like expands them. They open up more, they reveal things, especially when shame is involved. But even just feeling emotions, like feeling positive regard, if that's unfamiliar, um, like the thing that'll happen is like in that conversation, like afterwards, a person will feel like sort of like, "Ooh, okay, here it is. This is what it feels like to live like this." And then it's like the adaptation kind of like snaps it back. which actually makes you feel worse than you did kind of at the standing stop. So that can be particularly challenging just because it's like, who wants to feel worse? But it's like the working out example of sore muscles. And then on the other hand, the integration is like once you're kind of like once that settles in a little bit and you expand out a little bit more, you kind of feel better on a day-to-day in a day-to-day way. So I'm going to read through these two things. Hopefully, I can get through them. The Parinama practice is the Surgeon General's warning. The Parinama practice is not a substitute for medical care. It's intended to help support attending to and cherishing your body mind. And in fact, building a support team is part of growing capacity. The denial or delay of medical maintenance and physical needs is part of maladaptive holding patterns that diminish the importance of your connection to your body and yourself. Your care and support team comprises of doctors, dentists, therapists, and medications are essential for self-care that respects your body mind. I've witnessed many cases of a dangerous dissociative denial in the yoga and New Age spiritual community. People forego medical help for treatable matters because of magical thinking about the power of yoga, meditation, fasting, and eating so-called clean diets. I saw someone die of starvation from so-called spiritual fasting. And because Western medicine is so stigmatized in some communities, I've seen treatable medical conditions lead to permanent or near fatal conditions. Another dark side I've witnessed is blaming people with diseases like cancer and mental illness for these conditions and implying that a lack of green juice in yoga is at least partially responsible. My own experience with this practice has led to my now proactive medical and dental care. My previous fear of doctors and dentists was intense, yet when love and respect for my body, mind became central in my life, those fears became secondary to love and care. Yeah, this is a big one. Obviously, a lot more can be said on that. Um, yeah, I really like one of the things about reading this is I do crave this to be more interactive because I would really love to know what you think of that, what your thoughts are on that, and what your experience is with this type of thing. Um, certainly having people in my life who have battled cancer, seeing that this is alive and well, even in the most conventional of settings, like the idea that there is something that people have done that have, or a mistake they've made, um, you know, which leads them to be blamed for their condition of cancer. So this is the last section, and I'm going to wrap this up. Good practices. When we feel the positive disintegration of falling apart, see chapter 1, we're feeling behavior patterns and beliefs that have outlived their usefulness trying to fall away. As you read and do your practice, keep your journal and pen handy. Thoughts will inevitably arise, so write them down for later exploration. Again, journaling can help with processing thoughts and feelings. See chapter 11. Writing something down is particularly useful because you will likely find that some of the insights are potent in the moment when they arise, but quickly fade from memory. If there's a particular hub or topic that you feel compelled to prioritize, consider following this impulse to explore. Set a specific time of day to practice at least 4 days a week. Remember, consistently showing up for yourself is an act of self-love. I discuss the essential importance of devotional discipline and showing up for the people you love, including yourself, in chapters 6 and 7. As you familiarize yourself with your hubs, you may find yourself identifying with specific needs and adaptation patterns. And as you go through your day, you'll likely begin to see things differently. Add the movements and intentions from specific hubs as you check in with yourself. See chapter 11. While standing in line, riding an elevator, or commuting, the practice supports an ongoing love and commitment to yourself and your life. In chapter 3, the method, entering the void, paradox, ambiguity, and nuance, I discuss some of the larger concepts of the Parinama Method ethos. So there we have it. All right. So next time will be the beginning of chapter 3. So yeah. And I'm really looking forward to being, just less overcommitted. I think, at the end of March, I'm gonna be fully, invested in all things Parinama and the importance to me of bringing this into the world at a greater level. And, as I do that, I really if you've made it this far, thank you. I really welcome any thoughts you have on your own experience with this, and, like, the door is open, so come on in, and, looking forward to hearing from you, and again, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.